The seconds are out. The crowd is waiting. The boxers are getting ready to battle. Time for another edition of the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast with your presenter, Greg Rashid.
I want to say swaddy krop to everyone out there, which means hello on Thai. This is Greg Rashid, live in Bangkok, Thailand, for another edition of the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast. Many people listen to this program at their convenience, but a lot of folks listen every Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. Mountain Time on KUHS Denver.com, created by the one and only Henry Archuleta. And I want to say, as I always say, hi all my buddies and family and everyone that's in Denver. I keep saying I'm going to come back there soon, but you never know. The wind's blowing a certain way. I'll be back there when you least expect it. But right now, I'm in Bangkok, Thailand, loving it. And as always, we're going to have a great show today. Going to have a special guest on here, too. But we're going to get to, and I have to say this, a little housekeeping before I start for the new folks out there. And you're probably a boxing enthusiast if you're listening to this program. But what we do on here, we do fantasy fights. In other words, I use computer programs and card and dice games that are boxing related to create scenarios of what-if fights. You know, if you're a boxing fan, I know you sit around sometimes thinking, I wonder what would happen if Muhammad Ali fought Mike Tyson, or what would happen if Tyson Fury fought Joe Louis. Well, that's what we do on this program. We just mix up various fighters and come up with these scenarios, and if, a lot of people like them. And if you have some fighters you want to have box on this program, just drop me a line wherever you listen to this program, be it on YouTube, on KUSS, or wherever it is. And just say, I want these two to get it on. And we're going to do that. And today, our fight is going to be in the heavyweight division, Zhilei Zhang, the Big Bang out of China, versus Mike Tyson. Now, this Mike Tyson, this is the post-prime Mike Tyson. This is the Mike Tyson of Kevin McBride, Danny Williams, that era. So this is not the prime peak Tyson, but he was still tough. Even past his prime, he was dangerous. So we're going to get into this fight right now. So sit back, just relax, as we have Knockout Nigel as your commentator. So take it away.
Cheers. This is your humble commentator, Knockout Nigel, reporting live from a packed national stadium in Beijing, where the air is thick with anticipation. We've got a colossal clash tonight. The legendary Iron Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet in his heyday, stepping back into the ring against China's own heavyweight titan, Zhilei Big Bang Zhang. Before we dive into the action, let's set the stage properly. Mike Tyson. Where do we even begin? The youngest heavyweight champion in history, a man who struck fear into opponents with his ferocious power, blinding speed, and that iconic peekaboo style. Now, Zhilei Zhang, China's boxing pride. Olympic silver medalist, a southpaw with a piston-like jab and crushing power in that left hand, standing 6'6", weighs 270 pounds of pure muscle, and carries dynamite in both fists. The crowd is electric, Chinese flags waving, chants of Zhang Zhang echoing through the stadium, but there's also a strong contingent of Tyson fans here to witness history. And we are underway. Both men meet at center ring, and immediately this is a brawl on the inside. Tyson, showing no respect for Zhang's size, rushes in behind that trademark high guard, looking to rip hooks to the body. Zhang, though, is meeting fire with fire. He's not backing down. Vicious inside fighting right from the start. Tyson digs a left hook to Zhang's ribs. Thud. The crowd gasps. Zhang responds with a heavy uppercut that just grazes Tyson's chin. The speed from Tyson is shocking. He's bobbing, weaving, then launches a right hand over the top that snaps Zhang's head back. Zhang, though, is calm under pressure. He uses his long arms to tie Tyson up, then punches out of the clinch with sharp, short shots. The referee has to separate them. This is brutal, phone booth warfare. Tyson ducks low, looking for the killing right uppercut, but Zhang blocks it and fires back with a stiff jab that stops Tyson in his tracks. The crowd is roaring. This is not a feeling-out round. Tyson swarms again, throwing hooks in bunches, but Zhang is countering well, landing a hard left straight that makes Tyson reset. The final 10 seconds, Tyson rushes in, one last time, unloading a flurry, but Zhang stands his ground and fires back. What a hellacious first round. The judges will have a tough time scoring that one. Tyson's aggression and bodywork versus Zhang's cleaner counters and that thudding jab. This is the kind of round that would cause me to sip some bubbly. But alas, my bubbly was confiscated at customs, so I will be sipping green tea provided by the Chinese Boxing Commission. The bell rings for round 2, and Tyson charges forward like a man possessed, but something is off. Zhilei Zhang isn't throwing a single punch. The Chinese giant, Tyson, sensing weakness, digs brutal hooks to the body, thudding into Zhang's ribs with sickening force. Zhang's only response? Clinching. He grabs Tyson in a bear hug, leaning his massive frame on the smaller man, forcing the referee to intervene repeatedly. Tyson, frustrated, rips free and lands a sharp right uppercut, but Zhang just ties him up again. The crowd murmurs, "Where is the big bang from Zhang?" Tyson continues to press, slipping inside and working the ribs with thudding left hooks, but Zhang's strategy is clear: survive. He's not engaging, not countering, just holding, leaning, and stalling. The referee warns Zhang for excessive clinching, but it doesn't stop him. The round ends with Tyson landing one final digging left to the liver before the bell. The crowd is restless. This isn't the fight they expected. More of the same in round 3. Zhang is a statue, still not throwing a single punch. Tyson, now fully in control, walks him down, slipping Zhang's lazy jab attempts, when he even bothers to throw them, and punishing him with short, thudding shots on the inside. Zhang's face is red, his mouth open. He's exhausted. Every time Tyson gets close, Zhang grabs him in another clinch, leaning his weight on the aging legend. The referee is growing impatient, barking at Zhang to fight. But the Chinese heavyweight seems content to hold and survive. Tyson, ever the predator, adjusts, using subtle head movement to slip inside and blast Zhang's midsection with hooks. The crowd boos as Zhang continues to cling like a drowning man to a life raft. The final minute sees Tyson land a crisp right hand over the top, snapping Zhang's head back, but again, no response. The bell sounds and Tyson marches back to his corner, shaking his head in disbelief. 2 rounds in a row without Zhang throwing a single meaningful punch. A flicker of life from Zhang in round 4, but only a flicker. For the first 2 minutes, it's the same story. Tyson pressing forward, digging to the body, while Zhang holds, leans, and does nothing. Then, out of nowhere, Zhang finally throws 2 punches in the final 30 seconds, a lazy jab and a looping left that grazes Tyson. The crowd erupts, and Zhang, suddenly energized, raises his arms and showboats as if he's just scored a knockout. Tyson, unimpressed, immediately walks him down and cracks him it with a right hand. Zhang goes right back to clutching and grabbing, but the brief moment of offense, if you can even call it that, has the crowd buzzing. Still, Tyson controls the round, landing the cleaner, harder shots, while Zhang's 2-punch flurry does nothing. The bell rings, and Zhang struts to his corner like he's won the round, while Tyson glares at him, knowing he's being robbed of a real fight. The bell rings, and Tyson comes out like a man on a mission, his eyes locked onto Zhang with predatory focus. He immediately cuts off the ring, forcing Zhang to the ropes within seconds. Zhang, still breathing heavily from the early onslaught, raises his gloves in a defensive shell, but doesn't throw a single punch in return. Tyson, undeterred, digs a savage left hook to Zhang's ribs, the impact echoing through the arena. The crowd groans as Zhang absorbs the shot and immediately lunges forward, wrapping Tyson in a clinch. The referee barks at Zhang to break, but the Chinese heavyweight clings on like a drowning man, his arms draped over Tyson's shoulders, sapping the smaller man's energy. Tyson, frustrated, wrenches himself free and fires a right uppercut that snaps Zhang's head back. Zhang stumbles slightly, but responds by grabbing Tyson again, this time leaning his full 270-pound frame onto him. The referee steps in, warning Zhang for excessive holding, but the pattern continues. Tyson lands a clean shot, Zhang clinches. The crowd, growing restless, begins to boo as the round devolves into a slow, ugly grind. With 30 seconds left, Tyson finally times a perfect right hand over the top, cracking Zhang on the temple, but once again, Zhang smothers him in another clinch. The bell sounds, and Tyson marches back to his corner, shaking his head in disgust. Tyson's frustration boils over in round 6. He storms out of his corner, throwing looping hooks with bad intentions, but Zhang, still refusing to engage, backs into the ropes and holds his gloves high, offering no offense. Tyson punishes Zhang's body with thudding left hooks, each shot making Zhang grimace. But the moment Tyson steps in to follow up, Zhang grabs him in another desperate clinch. The referee, losing patience, threatens to deduct a point, but Zhang seems more concerned with surviving than winning. Midway through the round, after yet another clinch, Tyson suddenly jerks his head forward, intentionally ramming his forehead into Zhang's nose. The crowd gasps as Zhang staggers back, blinking in shock. The referee immediately steps between them, issuing a stern warning to Tyson. Zhang, for the first time all fight, looks genuinely angry, but instead of firing back, he goes right back to holding. The final minute sees Tyson land a brutal right uppercut that lifts Zhang's chin, but once again, Zhang smothers him, leaning and clutching until the bell. The crowd's polite applause is mixed with murmurs of disappointment. This is not the fight they paid to see. A turning point in round 7. After another slow, clinch-heavy start, Tyson finally finds his moment. With 30 seconds left, he ducks under a lazy Zhang jab and unloads a brutal 3-punch combination, right hook, left uppercut, right hand, that sends Zhang stumbling backward. The Chinese giant wobbles, his legs betraying him as he collapses against the ropes. The crowd leaps to their feet, sensing a knockout, but the bell saves Zhang. Tyson stalks back to his corner, knowing he was one punch away from ending it. Zhang, still shaky from the near knockdown, tries to fight back early in round 8, but his punches are slow, his movements sluggish. Tyson, smelling blood, presses forward, ripping body shots and sharp uppercuts. Zhang clinches desperately, but Tyson punches his way out, landing stiff right hands that snap Zhang's head back. The crowd, though respectful, wants more from their hometown fighter. The round ends with Tyson in complete control, while Zhang looks like a man just trying to hear the final bell. Against all odds, Zhang suddenly comes alive in round 9. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's a second wind, but out of nowhere, he lands a sharp right lead, followed by a crushing left hook that buckles Tyson's knees. The crowd erupts as Tyson, stunned, takes a half step back. Zhang, finally aggressive, presses forward, throwing heavy shots and forcing Tyson to cover up. For the first time all fight, Zhang dominates a round, landing clean, hard punches. The bell rings, and Zhang raises his arms. Was this his last stand? Zhang, sensing he needs a knockout, comes out swinging in round 10, but Tyson, wise to the danger, fights smartly from the outside. He slicks and slides, avoiding Zhang's wild bombs, and counters with sharp, precise punches. Zhang, swinging for the fences, misses wildly, his fatigue showing. The crowd, though hopeful, groans as Zhang's rally fades. The final bell rings, and Tyson raises his arms in victory, while Zhang, exhausted, can only nod in respect. The judge's decision is unanimous. Mike Tyson wins. The crowd politely applauds, but there's a sense of disappointment. Zhang could have done so much more. Tyson, ever the showman, salutes the fans, but even he knows this was a fight that never truly caught fire, and this green tea never caught fire for me. I have to rush back to customs and get my bubbly to calm my gut. I will now return you to our Bangkok studio. This is Knockout Nigel. Cheers.
I know one thing, you don't want to mess with Chinese customs. I wouldn't do that knockout. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that fight. And that fight was simmed by Glory Days Boxing, created by Lee Anthony Crook, who's been on the show. And we're going to have him back on again. Great game. He also has a pro and college football game I would suggest you check out. Really, really a nice guy. A lot of valuable information, not only about gaming, but life in general he has. But hope you enjoyed that fight again. And like I said before, if you have a fight you'd like to see on this program, just drop me a line wherever you hear this program, be it on KUHS, on Facebook, on YouTube, iHeart, on Apple, wherever you're listening. And let me know, and I'll be more than happy to put those two fighters on here. And also we have simulations for women fighters if you want to do that. But anyway, we're going to get to some boxing history this week with the one and only Kiki. And she'll give us our boxing history on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
This is Kiki, your favorite ring card girl with your boxing history, for the week of June 22nd through June 28. June 22nd, 1937. Joe Louis became heavyweight champion and defended the title until his retirement in 1949, becoming the longest reigning champion in history. June 23, 2007. Ricky Hatton defended his ring light welterweight championship by defeating Jose Luis Castillo. June 24, 1957. Hogan Bassi became Nigeria's first world boxing champion in history, winning the vacant world featherweight title with a 10th round knockout of Sharif Hamia. June 25, 1948. Joe Louis retained his world heavyweight title for the 25th and final time, a record for any division in boxing history. June 26, 1934. Sixto Escobar became Puerto Rico's first world champion in history, knocking out Baby Casanova in 9 rounds. June 27, 1988. Mike Tyson retained his undisputed world heavyweight title with a first-round knockout of former world champion Michael Spinks. June 28, 1997. Evander Holyfield won by disqualification over Mike Tyson after Tyson tried to bite his ear twice.
That's amazing. I mean, it seemed like I was just looking at that fight, the second Holyfield-Tyson fight. But thank you so much for that, Kiki. And she has some more news here. Let's see. She's going to talk about next. Let's see what she has on her agenda. I believe this will be about the upcoming Canelo and Terrence Crawford fight. So let's hear what Kiki has to say about that on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
The following article was written by Coral Berry for the BBC. Saul Canelo Alvarez told Terrence Crawford he is a great fighter, but he's not Canelo, as the pair kicked off their media tour in Saudi Arabia. The pound-for-pound greats will fight on 13 September in Las Vegas for Alvarez's undisputed super middleweight world championship. It is about being billed as the fight of the century, but Alvarez dismissed the notion it could be a close contest with American Crawford stepping up from light middleweight. "He's a great fighter, but he's not Canelo. I have the experience," Alvarez said at a news conference. "They only focus on my power, but I have more than that. This fight is going to be one of my best fights on my record." Alvarez, 34, may be the younger man by 3 years, but having made his professional debut aged 15 and with 11 world titles, 27 world title fights, and 67 bouts in total under his belt, the Mexican has been cast as the man to pass the torch to Crawford. "He's not going to beat me, don't worry about it," Alvarez answered at one stage, which drew a laugh and a smile from Crawford, who replied, "For sure them belts are coming home with me." 26 bouts separate the rivals, but Crawford too has a record most fighters could only dream of, with 19 consecutive world title bout and a two-weight undisputed champion. Crawford promised he would become the first male three-weight undisputed champion, in a classy nod to his American counterpart Claressa Shields, who has already achieved the feat in the women's code. Alvarez was equally confident, describing himself as a winner and telling Crawford, "You don't look different." "I'm different. You going to see," Crawford said in reply.
Yeah, I keep wavering back and forth. I really like Terrence. I really like him as a fighter. He's one of the best I've ever seen. And Alvarez, I mean, he's, a lot of people criticize him. And he may be taking PEDs, but he's a good fighter, very good fighter. He's a Hall of Famer, as is Crawford. And I keep wavering. One day I'll go with Crawford, next day with Canelo. Right now I'm on Crawford, but who do you think? Who do you think is going to win that fight? That's going to be a great one. And now she's going to be talking about a fight that's not so great. It's Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. versus Jake Paul. So let's hear what she has to say about that.
On Saturday, June 28th, Jake Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. will face off in a 10-round boxing match. If Chavez gets his wish, the contest, which will be contested at 200 pounds, will be the final fight of Paul's boxing career. During an interview with Ariel Helwani, Chavez was asked if he was motivated to score a knockout when the two meet at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, and get Paul out of boxing. "Yes," Chavez said. "I still think that I'm better than Jake Paul, so I think after this fight, maybe Jake continues to fight and tries to be a better boxer. But I don't think he has the skills and everything to win the fight. Yes, I want to end Jake Paul's career." Promoted Chavez, a former WBC middleweight champion, enters the upcoming matchup with a 54 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw record. He is coming off a July 2024 decision win over former UFC fighter Uriah Hall. The 39-year-old said of his fight against Paul and what he hopes it could lead to. "I want to make it clear that I'm still here," said Chavez. "I'm not old, and I take this sport seriously. I train hard, I'm disciplined, I'm 39, so I don't think I'm old. I still feel good in the gym. I want to prove that I'm still here, that I'm still a good fighter. So I want to fight better opposition after this fight, and that's why I take this fight."
I hope Junior is serious. I hope he is, because somebody needs to knock off Jake Paul. Somebody really needs. Tommy Fury did beat him, and they should eventually have a rematch. And Paul is he's wavering with that, but I hope, and I got to say, Julio Jr. is not one of my favorite fighters. I don't think he trains for a lot of the fights he had in the past, even though he was a champion. He didn't train properly, and he would even disappoint his own father with some of his fights, but I hope he beats Paul. I really do. But what do you think? But anyway, we're going to change up things now because, as I always tell you, this is a boxing variety show. And we're going to do a little music here before we have our guest on. And this song is actually appropriate for our guest. This is DC's own Chuck Brown, the king of go-go music, and this is Block Party. So let's hear this on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
party, y'all. Everybody dressed up, looking good. Grab my shades so the sun don't blind me, no. It's nothing like summertime in the hood. Let's have a block party. Get on up, ain't got nothing else to do. Let's have a barbecue. Grab your phone, everybody go call the crew. Let's have a block party. Summertime, and the sun don't set tonight. As long as the beat don't break and the wine keep popping, we gonna keep rocking till the cops come knocking. Get 'em up, turn around, way up, grab a hand all the way. Turn around, let's stop, move around now. Go to the left, out, turn to the right, ladies, take your hand now, stop, grab a hand now. Turn around like a ball, move around now. Go to the left, let's stop, to the right now. Yo, one time now, two times, turn about, Chuck Brown, let's rock. Cops are harassing, trying to shut us down. But ain't nobody breaking rules now. So we ain't trying to hurt nobody, officer. We ain't trying to act no fool. We're so cool. We're just trying to move and have a block party. Get on up, ain't got nothing else to do. Let's have a barbecue. Grab your phone, everybody go call the crew. Let's have a block party. Summertime, and the sun don't set tonight. As long as the beat don't break and the wine keep popping, we gonna keep rocking till the cops come knocking. Get 'em up, turn around, way up, grab a hand all the way. Turn around, let's stop, move around now. Go to the left, out, turn to the right, ladies, take your hand now, stop, grab a hand now. Turn around like a ball, move around now. Go to the left, let's stop, to the right now. Yo, one time now, two times, turn about, Chuck Brown, let's rock. As long as the beat don't stop, as long as the wine keep popping, the house gon' keep on rocking until the cops come knocking. As long as the beat don't stop, as long as the wine keep popping, the house gon' keep on rocking until the cops come knocking. Hit it. Long as the beat don't stop, hit it. As long as the beat don't stop, as long as the wine keep popping, hit it, y'all. As long as the wine keep popping, just let the house keep rocking. Just let the house keep rocking until the cops come knocking. Until the cops come knocking. As long as the beat don't stop, hit it again. As long as the beat don't stop, as long as the wine keep popping, as long as the wine keep popping, we're gonna let the house keep rocking. We're gonna let the house keep rocking until the cops come knocking. Until the cops come knocking. Come on, just around, get 'em up, turn around, way up, grab a hand all the way. Turn around, let's stop, move around now. Go to the left, out, turn to the right, ladies, take your hand now, stop, grab a hand now. Turn around like a ball, move around now. Go to the left, let's stop, to the right now. Yo, one time now, two times, turn about, Chuck Brown, let's rock. Just keep on rocking. Just keep on rocking. Let's keep on rocking, y'all. Keep the wine popping. Keep on rocking. Ain't gonna be no stopping. Till the cops come rocking. They gon' rock you, y'all.
Yeah, that song was released in 2007 and still kicking. It's still relevant. There's the late, great Chuck Brown, DC's own, and I'm saying D, some people don't even know what I'm saying, but Washington, DC's own Chuck Brown, the godfather of go-go music and block party. And in the background, that was DJ Cool, who was like chanting and all, but I hope you enjoyed that on the Show the Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast. And I played that song because my next guest, he and I both lived on the same block, different times, but we kind of almost connected because I'm older than him, but we kind of hung around the same places, kind of knew some of the same people and all that. Who I'm talking about is Bajan Bain, who's been on here a number of times, author, lecturer, just an all-around nice guy. And I did an interview with him, so let's play that right now on the Show the Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast. And as I promised, I have a special guest on today. very special guest. He's been on a number of times. Those of you who have followed me over the years on various radio platforms in Denver, in DC, in Nebraska, all the places I've been over the years, I've seemed like I've always had Bajan on, but I got Bajan Bain back on again. A lot of people like him over the years. And God, it's been, when you wrote the Elgin Baylor book, has that been 9 years?
Yeah, 2015. It's been 10.
10, good grief. So that's how,
Crazy.
think about it, it is crazy. But the thing is, John,
I think life is a joke. Yeah,
it is a joke. The universe is just, likes to play games. But Bajan and I, we connected with his book, the first, the book that I read, that interview in the morning about Elgin Baylor. But over the years of just talking to him, we have found out we have an amazing connection, besides the fact that he's now also in Thailand. And we grew up separately, in a sense, because I'm older than him, in the same neighborhood in Washington, D.C., in the same block in Washington, D.C., two brothers ending up in Thailand in our retirement years. And also we have a connection as far as media, people we've met and all. Just, Bajan, just tell my listeners a little more about, our little connection there.
So I don't know how long it took us to both know this, but when you were a little boy, you lived in the 1300 block of Monroe Street, northeastern Washington, D.C. 3 years after your family moved, my family moved to the 1300 block of Monroe Street on Washington, D.C., the same city block across the street from where your family had lived. When I was 64, after doing some research and watching some YouTubers and vloggers and talking to you a little bit, and after a couple of visits, I moved to Thailand. I asked you when you moved, you said you moved to Thailand when you were 64. Yep. We're both Negro League researchers and authors, and we're both sports historians, and we've both done some media.
It's just incredible. The odds of that happening, being in the same neighborhood, are probably a zillion to one. I mean, it's amazing. And to come to a place like Thailand, to come here, that move from D.C. to Maryland or something like that, or even Denver, but to move, to a foreign country like this, and to do, and to find this connection is really something. And I know, because Bajan has been talking to me about this, and at first I'd been I never look at the stuff I do, and some people who know me very well know that the things I've done over the years, be it in media, in government, a little bit of everything, I always look at it as like, now, I'm just doing something. I'm not really, I know it's special, but I just look at it like I'm bagging bags at a Safeway or something. It's like, oh, I'm just doing something. I'm painting a house. I'm just doing this. But Bajan has kind of opened me up to the fact that, a lot of people have not done what we have done. And I just never have looked at that. I've never looked at it. I just assume that everyone has eventually opened up a mic and spoke on the air. But I keep forgetting, when I have invited friends over the years, when I was in Denver at the radio station at Kuvo for over 10 years, and would invite friends to come to the radio station, it was the first time they had ever seen the inside of a radio station. And it just would never dawn on me. What I'm doing basically once or twice a week, they've never done at all. And Bajan is the one that's like kind of clicked into me, like, this is something that maybe more people would like to know about. And just elaborate about some of this, the stuff you've gone through.
Well, I don't like to use the term take it for granted, because we're just trying to keep a roof over our heads the last 45 years, you and I, even though we didn't know each other, kind of know each other, maybe cross paths at baseball conferences or Negro League conventions, but you're just working. You're not thinking, my buddies and my aunts and uncles and people I meet on an plane or in the waiting room for a flight, they haven't interviewed a ball player, or they've never been in the press box, or they've never had access to, interviewing a celebrity on the air, or going to Southeast Asia or something like that. But then when you talk to people and they say, tell me more about Vic Power, what was it like meeting? And you're not thinking of these people as, I mean, you're kind of working. You're not like Luis Tian or Buck O'Neill. It's just part of an interest that you've had since you were a little boy, following the sport, seeing the pictures in Ebony every year of all the Black and Afro-Latin guys on the teams. And you said you used to put yours on your wall. It's just an interest. It's not like, ooh, I'm this person that gets to sit up in the press box. But to other people, when you bump into people, or they ask you what you do, if it even comes up, you're like, yeah. They say, you met son? And the other thing is, so I think it might be interesting to sort of talk about it, you and I, a little more, because it might surprise some people how our paths overlap. For instance, in Boston and DC, because we moved to DC when I was about almost 6. My mother worked in both cities for the American Friends Service Committee. So tell some people a little bit more about that on your end. And when I was a communications consultant or media consultant, I was an independent consultant to an organization called Physicians for Social Responsibility. So tell people a little bit more about that on your end, both organizations.
Well, it's so funny. It's really something, because when you said that, when you wrote that about your experiences in the book we'll be talking about later, and you mentioned your mother had worked at AFSC, American Friends Service Committee. That is the organization that got me to Denver, because I became the program director. I ran the Colorado office in Denver starting in 1993 until 98. And that's like, wow, that your mother actually worked there. And I had the experience of going eventually to the Massachusetts office just to visit, to go to, various AFSC offices. But that was my gig as far as, being a director. And a lot of people got to know me still through AFSC, who are on various platforms, who still keep in touch with me all these over 20 years now, know me from that. But before AFSC, I was also the regional coordinator for the Physicians for Social Responsibility. And both of these organizations are social justice peace organizations. And I was, for 3 years in DC, the regional coordinator meaning that I was working with other doctors to develop their skills as far as speaking in public, activism and all. And I did that in the southeastern part of the U.S., the northeastern part, up in Massachusetts, up in Maine and all, and also in the Southwest. And that's where I got my first experience as far as Denver. When I went to, helped to organize, all of us who worked at PSR, Physicians for Social Responsibility, back in 1990, our annual conference. It was based in Denver. And that was the first time I had been out there. And I got to say, honestly, I fell in love with the place. And I always said, if I could get a gig out here, I would do it. And the next thing you know, a couple of years later, I get a notice about an organization of AFSC who I knew all about, had an opening for a program director position to run the whole organization out there. And I applied, not knowing if I would get it or not, and ended up getting it. I was amazed, because there were a lot of people I thought were more, who had, I wouldn't say more experience, but I had what they were looking for. And plus I had recommendations from a lot of people like Vincent Harding, who wrote for Dr. King. A lot of people may know Vincent Harding, the author, the activist, people like that who wrote letters of recommendation to the local AFSC office in Colorado saying, that you should hire this guy. And that's how I ended up out there. And it's just, and I should say this too, as far as being in Southeast Asia, prior to PSR, Physicians for Social Responsibility, for many years, I was a social justice activist, doing things with an organization I had found called Blacks Against Nukes, which is another story in itself. But because of that, I was invited back in 1983 to come over to this side of the world for the first time to a conference for almost a month in Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki in Sasebo, Japan. It was a conference about anti-nuclear, anti-war conference, and it was during August, which is the annual event of celebrating, I shouldn't say celebrating, but remembering the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I was invited there and ended up invited to speak in at the conference, spoke in to a bunch of students in Nagasaki, spoke on television in Nagasaki too, and also spoke in Hiroshima to the conference. And it's just an amazing event, but that kind of got me eventually, in a sense, back this way, back over here eventually in Asia, being in Thailand now. And I'm trying my best. I should say this year is the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And there's going to be a big event in Japan in 2 months. I'm trying my best to get there. I have to see what happens. But anyway, that's just briefly a little bit about me. But John, just tell them more about, our connection. Tell them more about that.
So most of the elderly Negro League or Afro-Latin ball players that were around in the 90s or early 2000s, you and I have either been around them at events, met them, or interviewed them, including former Homestead Grays. Several of the activists, in most cases, you knew these people way better than I, but several of the activists that people, mostly people over 45 would have heard of. People, I'm just going to throw out, I mean, there's many, many names that you and I have talked about over the weeks, just on casual phone calls that we've interacted with. But I'll just use Dick Gregory for an example.
Right.
Some entertainers. Often when I mention an entertainer on social media, you'll say, I interviewed that individual. I think Roy Ayers or someone died a couple months back. And then, of course, we didn't know about the Physicians for Social Responsibility connection or the American Friends Service Committee connection. When I first moved out here, we didn't know that until I started working on a memoir where I mentioned those things in passing, because in one case, my mom worked at one organization, and in another case, I did some media consultation. So there's probably stuff we don't even know yet that we've both done.
Oh, we're just touching the surface. And why we're doing, for one reason I'm doing it, we're doing this part of the program here because I like it, but John, as I've said this on the show many times, he's part of this show. He can come on here anytime he wants. And we're trying to tease this memoir on this show today to drum up some interest and talk a little more about that, Bajan. Because you're the writer.
So Greg and I have toyed with or are entertaining the idea of writing a tag team memoir where we'll write alternating chapters. Maybe one about Negro League research and publication. A first one about living in the Brooklyn section of Northeast DC when we were both little boys, although we didn't know each other. One about deciding to move to Thailand, specifically in Southeast Asia, which coincidentally we did at the same age, and just kind of explore not a memoir where every chapter is about something like that, but just literally a memoir, but just addressing the themes of the overlap, right. How ironic it is, how there's no accidents or coincidences, and then just spiritual things we both explored, paranormal things that we both kind of looked at, people we both read, and the rarity of some of those books, and then our love of our mutual love of boxing history.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. And it's rare, to find, because this is this is my brother here. I mean, from another, we have, we probably, if you believe in listeners out there in past lives and all that, who knows who we were together at one time, who knows, but we're connected now over here. And we just want to know if there would be any I know there would be interest in a memoir like this, in a book like this, or anything from a blog, podcast, but the interest, because many times you don't hear people talk about these things as far as being, meeting these folks or being in a studio or anything like that. And people don't know what actually goes on and how you meet people. And I always tell folks that people are just people. You may want to call someone a star, but as I've learned, 99.9% of the people I've interviewed who you would consider a celebrity or something, they're just down to earth. Their gig happens to be singing or telling a joke or going on stage doing, talking about the civil rights movement or something like that. But they're basically just typical. They're just humans. I'm thinking, on top of my head, I'm just thinking about something like, I know a lot of people wouldn't even do this if they were in her presence. But I remember at a conference I was speaking at in Boulder, Colorado, at CU, Colorado University. I was standing in a room and Angela Davis walks in, and I had met her in the past, but we weren't talking about politics or anything. We were talking about lunch. And the first thing she said to me was like, when I'm hungry, I want to know when they're going to bring the lunch out. And that's all we talked about. We weren't even into anything else. We just want to know, we want to eat. We just want to eat right now. And that's how I have been able to just, over the years, I'm sure you have too, Bajan, you're just talking to folks. You're not like trying
It's humanity. I mean, the
Yeah.
only reason it's humanity. I mean, living in DC, I had seen Dick Gregory in passing, but I never bothered him or said anything to him if he was near a CVS or just walking down the street in the opposite direction. I've
Right.
said a couple things to other people that are randomly bumped into on the street if I had an in or a connection or if they were alone, but not him. But the only reason I really met him was we were he was a keynote speaker at a conference at which I was a panelist. So I was a panelist about, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago,
Right.
at a conference called the Black New England Conference, which takes place every year in like Portsmouth, Manchester, New Hampshire, near the University of New Hampshire. And one year, the theme of the conference was the history of Black comedy and Black humor. So he was the keynote, and I did a panel, where I presented about the history of Black humor in the U.S. from so-called minstrel era through vaudeville and Burt Williams to current,
Right.
through Pryor and Cosby and Murphy to current. So when you go to that conference, a lot of people fly to Boston because it's just an easier flight and not that far from that part of New England. Then you get to New Hampshire from there. So he must have landed around the same time I did, although he's coming from overseas.
Uh-huh.
And so we got picked up by the husband of the conference organizer, and he drove us to New Hampshire together. And that's where we talked about the JFK assassination and some other things. And he had this enormous coffee, not even a coffee table book, this gigantic European book with him, which he must have had on the plane. When I say plane, I mean he was coming from Russia, where he does this. He had done all this research. Right. We'll talk about the research another time, breast milk related. But he must have literally been coming from the long flight from there, and then maybe some layover to Boston, because he had the book with him. So he probably had all the same luggage. And so because the ride might be, I'm just guessing, like an hour and 45 minutes, hour and a half, we had a little bit of time to talk. And then we maybe talked a little bit when we got to New Hampshire. But I'm saying these things to say, some of these people I only saw once, like the Melba Moores, Donna Summer. I was around, just kind of ran. I wasn't really around Donna Summer. I was at a conference for the National Trust for Historic Preservation in Nashville with a filmmaker that I did some research work for a movie about the Rosenwald schools and Julius Rosenwald. And the filmmaker flew me to Nashville with her. She lives in DC, so that we could do a panel for people at the National Trust about making independent films and how to start an independent film, how to fundraise, and how to shoot an independent film. She'd done several movies before the Rosenwald movie. She'd done Life and Times of Hank Greenberg and things like that.
Right.
I'd known her for a little while. But when we were in Nashville, I had been there before and she hadn't. So I said, let's have lunch one day at this hotel called the Hermitage, because it's very historic.
Oh, I've been there.
Stayed there. Minnesota
I have been there.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, Minnesota Fats lived there, but a lot of presidents have stayed there. So when I went to meet her, Donna Summer was standing outside this banquet hall, kind of a fancy banquet hall, not like a hotel meeting room, on the first floor. And the building had been renovated several years before. So I had visited on what they call a media trip for travel writers to come in and experience it right after the renovation.
Right.
And so she's just standing there, and I'm like, well, maybe she maybe she's here to perform a gig or something like that. But it wasn't really like a music room or anything like that. So I found out, somebody said in passing, not my friend, but maybe somebody in the hotel or some kind of way, I found out she was waiting at the doorway to this room because some NFL player was about to get married. I don't know who. It was probably a Titan. But Donna Summer, who's from Boston like and I didn't go over and say anything to her either, which is not the brightest thing on my part, but I didn't bother.
Yeah.
Nobody walked up to her.
Right. Well,
nobody looked at her. Nobody made eye contact with her in the lobby. Nobody recognized her, nothing.
I've had that happen now with Donna Summer.
This is probably like only around 2009 or 10-ish. Not a soul. And I've been around people like that before where not a soul recognized them, like in elevators, on jury duty. Nobody knew who they were. Sergeant Stryver, Melba Moore, people.
Oh yeah.
Nobody knew who they were.
Yeah, we got only a few minutes here, but I want to tell you, as far as my Dick Gregory, I can't go into detail. All I will say is that he knew my family and we were tight. That's all I can say right now. I would have that. The story is almost a book in itself. But anyway, it's these folks.
Well, I hope there's interest in such a book.
I hope I hope that my listeners, people will let me know if there's an interest in a book or like I said, a podcast or a Substack or blog, an ebook on this. Because frankly, I don't think, maybe Bijan better than I, if anyone has ever even done what we're doing, something like this. That way, you're going behind the curtain. But
you're a voracious reader. I'm an avid reader, not as much the last 10 or 12 years because nobody's recommended anything to me, but I used to be. And you're a voracious reader. I've never heard of such a book. I've heard of siblings, husband and wife, teammates, but I've never heard of a tag team book for people that didn't even really know about each other until they were in their 50s.
I haven't either, except in like science fiction. But that's another story.
That's kind of what it is.
That's what it is. But
when I asked you what block on Monroe Street, you literally said the 1300 block. I was like, wait a minute now.
Yeah. But Bijan, you'll be back on definitely. But I just want to thank you again. If anyone wants to contact you, tell them where, because the man's got books, he's got articles he's written. Tell them the best way to contact you.
Let's go with Twitter, which a lot of people don't use anymore, Bijan C. Bain, or Facebook, Bijan C. Bain, and Instagram, BIJANCBAYNE.
All right. Thank you so much, Bijan. You will be back as always, you'll always be back on here anytime. But we will talk later.
Thank you, my brother from another.
That's right. Oh, man, that's my man, Bajan there. Hope you enjoyed that interview. And I want to know, I'm asking my listeners, would you like to read a book about our experiences, or should we be doing a podcast or an e-book? Let me know. Wherever you're listening to the program, I'm serious about that. I really want to know your opinions, because we're working on this thing, and we really want to get your opinions. We have a lot of information, a lot of stories that you won't hear anywhere else. So let us know. But Bajan, you know, he's just a great guy, and we'll have him on many times. But we got to get ready to get out of here, man. Man, I could talk to Bajan all day, which I've done. But I want to let you know again that go in love and go in peace. Help someone along the way, and do what you can to make wherever you live in this universe a better place. That means helping a young person, senior in need, an animal that may be in distress. Do what you can, because we're on this big blue ball together. So do what you can to make it better. Wake up in the morning, hug yourself, and say you love yourself. And by doing that, you can love others and love the community. But anyway, this is Greg Rashid. Go in love and go in peace. See you next time on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Please become a member at patreon.com under the title Ringside Fantasy Fights and News. See you next time.